Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the Slurve. This is Cash Game Cornerstones. I'm your host, Steve Repsold. And what a first week we had for the videos over at Slurve. We're doing great. I won't dwell on it too much, other than to say that congratulations to Adam, my colleague, Ship My Money DFS. He took down a FanDuel Playboy Mansion qualifier on Friday, so he's going to be out there at the Playboy Mansion. Now the rest of us Slurve guys have to win one so we can go and, not be the ones left out. But congrats, Adam. And that said, we've got a busy slate this Monday, so let's kick it right off and talk about some pitching options. So it's a bit of an interesting day for pitching. There's no clear option that is just far and away better than the rest. There's no Clayton Kershaw on the mound. There's nobody almost as good as Kershaw in a good matchup. So, this is going to be one of the tougher slates to choose your cash game pitching options, I think. We'll start off with the guy who has by far the biggest Vegas odds to win, the biggest favorite, Dallas Keuchel. He was like minus 175 last night. I think I checked this morning. He's up to minus 184. He's 9-9 on DK, 10-5 on FanDuel, which given the win bonus there seems like a pretty fair bump up for him. But on the other hand, he hasn't been great this year. He's kind of gotten blown up a little bit, and that's not what we want in our cash games. We want safe options who aren't going to get blown up. That said, he's got a ton of upside, and it's definitely worth consideration. The matchup against Minnesota is while not ideal, it's pretty good. They don't have the most scary hitters. There's some guys in there that are threatening, the Miguel Sano and some of those other guys. Sano, I think, actually. So let's talk about another guy. There's going to be some big differences between FanDuel and DraftKings today. And on FanDuel, John Gray is being given away. He is 5,500. He is priced for Coors Field, and he is not in Coors Field. He's at Petco, which, if you don't know, Petco in San Diego is one of the most pitcher-friendly parks out there, as opposed to Coors, which is the most hitter-friendly park out there. So that's a big upgrade for him. And at 5-5 on FanDuel, I'm going to have trouble keeping him out of my cash game lineups. You don't really have to work that hard for the bat cash, but, that's a good chunk of change to save and spend on bats. 5,000 over Keuchel. Little bit about John Gray. So, if you just look at his numbers this year, not that great. Although his strikeout percentage is pretty high up there. And so I did a little bit of digging. The guy's got a lot of potential. In 20 innings pitched last season away from Coors Field, it's not a huge sample, but still, he had a 30% strikeout rate. That's elite. I mean, that's Mad Bum kind of elite. Not saying that he is that kind of talent, but he does have that kind of upside, and we are talking about the Padres here, who have been nothing short of terrible, and like to strike out. So, at that price on FanDuel, it's hard to say no to John Gray. On DraftKings, he's 7,900. It's a big increase. I love him as a tournament option in there. I was chatting with Max in the Slurve chat earlier, and he was talking about how the pricing makes him just a perfect tournament option on DK, and I'm inclined to agree. Because as we talked about, the upside is there. But there's a lot of guys you can get around that price on DK. Nate Carnes against Oakland is another guy that I like a lot. He's only 7,600 on DK, 8,200 on FanDuel. Much less attractive there with only needing one pitcher. Hamill versus Pittsburgh is 8K and 8,900 on FanDuel. Again, not interested on FanDuel. On DK is only 100 more than John Gray, so it's definitely something worth considering. I think he's one of the riskier ones. He's borderline a favorite at the moment. Pittsburgh can hit, and while Hamels' numbers have been excellent so far this year, I'm not convinced that continues. We also got Johnny Cueto back on the mound. He's got Cincinnati. Not the most impressive offense, but not the least either. I think Cueto is going to be really, really popular. He had a big game, a complete game, I want to say, last time out. And people are very, very influenced by recency bias. So I think a lot of people are going to be all over that. Max and I in the Slurve chat earlier were kind of ballparking him at about 40% on DK. He's 10.8 there, 10.6 on FanDuel. He is the second biggest favorite on the day. It's not a wrong move to play him, but I'm not sure that it's the most optimal move. I'm really liking Carnes today, honestly. And John Gray at FanDuel, even at DraftKings, I'm giving him a hard look after digging some more into his stuff. So you got some choices to make today, but I think some combination of Keuchel, Carnes, Hamill, Cueto, and Gray between DraftKings and FanDuel is going to be the money ticket. To narrow that down for you a little bit. On DraftKings, I'm strongly leaning towards, it's a tough decision for me, honestly. I'm thinking Keuchel and Carnes at the moment. Go with the double K and hope they get a lot of Ks and hope I stop making bad jokes. But that's the best that I got for you on pitching today. It's not the clearest slate where this guy is the cash game lock at pitcher. I think there's a number of different ways that you could go with it, and it's going to depend a little bit on what you want to do with your bats, so let's talk about that. Catcher is never my favorite, but not too bad today. It's going to depend a little bit on where you want to go at pitcher, because some of these guys are going against some of the possible top cash game pitching options, but let's just go right into it. One of them that's not, Jonathan LaCroix. He's kind of expensive on DK at 3.7. He's only 3K on FanDuel. More attractive price there. He's going against Weaver. Not the most threatening matchup. If he gets the start, Barnhart versus Cueto. He's one of these guys that home run is coming. I don't know if it'll be today, but he's definitely trending that way. He's definitely a punt play. 2,100 on DK, 2,200 on FanDuel. If he gets the start and you're punting catcher, you could do worse. Salvador Perez versus Gio Gonzalez. This actually, this is for cash games, so I won't elaborate too much on this. But Kansas City is one of my favorite tournament stacks of the day. They have an excellent record versus Gio, the batters in question. And as we saw last time when I touted Gio as a cash game pitching option, he definitely has the ability to either blow up or not have a great game. He is one of those guys where it sort of depends which Gio shows up. So Salvador Perez, another guy who's just been hitting the ball really, really hard. He's had a number of home runs in the last couple weeks. I think that could continue soon. He's only 2,700 on DK, which is frankly just kind of giving him away, in my opinion. He's 3K on FanDuel, which definitely makes him less attractive there. There's also Posey against Brandon Finnegan. Not the best matchup. Brandon Finnegan's not a bad pitcher. I'm mainly interested in Posey on FanDuel, where he's 3.4. On DK, he's 4.4. I don't like his price so much there, but he's Buster Posey. He's always got upside. And finally, this is also a FanDuel exclusive one because this guy's not listed at catcher. On DraftKings, Evan Gattis gets Juan Berrios, who he's a great prospect, and it's completely possible that his first game was more of an outlier and that he comes out and strikes out 9 today, but I don't see it. We definitely have to go with what we have, and what we have is that his first start wasn't great, and that Houston has been hitting the ball a lot better lately. And of course, Vegas really likes them in this game. Pretty high run total. I want to say it was 4.7 or so. And on FanDuel, he's only 2,600. I didn't even write down what he is on DraftKings because he's an outfielder there, and we have better options at outfield. But at catcher on FanDuel for 2,600, if Gaddis is in the lineup, I think he is a pretty solid cash game play. That's all I got for catcher. It's kind of a lot for what is normally a bit of a barren position. Not anything that is just the best possible play, but a lot of guys that I think aren't going to kill you and are likely to pay off their salary. First base is a little less loaded with options than it is on some days. Great option in a not great matchup. Anthony Rizzo gets Jarrett Cole today. Cole's obviously a good pitcher, but Rizzo is obviously a very good hitter. He's only 4,400 on DK. Nice value there. 47 on FanDuel. Bit less of a value. Toronto bats in general are kind of underpriced, I think. AJ Griffin's had a couple nice outings here in the last going, but historically he's not the greatest pitcher. DraftKings has him priced like ridiculously up today, like 9,200. Kind of price I would never consider him at, which might make him a good tournament option, but probably not. So Toronto bats seem to be way priced down to me. Edwin Encarnacion is only 3,800 on DK. He's only 3,400 on FanDuel, which with the salary cap difference is roughly about the same price. Hard to go wrong with him at that price, and they're at home. All good things. Chris Carter had the old double dong yesterday. I didn't see that one coming. He did not rate well in my home run seeking model, which I've since tweaked. But regardless of that, he still didn't come out well. He didn't have the advanced stats indicators, but he did come out with 2 big home runs. And Chris Carter is a guy we know has power. He's shown quite a bit of it so far this year. And he's a guy that's always cheap, at least so far. He gets Weaver, 3,800 on DK, and a real bargain at 3K on FanDuel. Maybe not someone you want to give up your first base slot for, but yesterday proved that he has all the upside in the world. I think I like Encarnacion at the same price better on DK. FanDuel, it's a bit of a toss-up, but if you're going with, John Gray at pitcher, you were just going to have salary coming out the ass, so you might want to spend up, maybe even consider going with Rizzo at the higher price there, or spend up at some of the other positions. Another guy going against Griffin, if he gets the start, is Justin Smoke. He's just dirt cheap, 2,700 on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel. Just giving him away there, but we probably don't need that. There's a couple of guys at first base that I really like more as tournament options. I'll just throw it out there in there. Ryan Howard, Freddie Freeman's got a great record against the pitcher. Folty, Mike Fulton, something. I never say his name right, so I just call him Folty. And so those guys. Oh, and Hosmer versus Gio, as mentioned, the Kansas City guys. But for cash, I'm much more liking Edwin Encarnacion, Chris Carter, and Anthony Rizzo. So I just realized after recording that bit that I got it wrong in my notes, and Freddie Freeman's actually against Bartolo Colon, who he does have the good record against. I didn't get that bit wrong. But on the plus side, you got to hear me make a fool of myself trying to say Mike Folty's full name. So anyway, second base. Guys I like. The Texas bats are interesting too. R.A. Dickey, is a bit of an enigma, as all knuckleballers are. You kind of never know exactly what you're going to get there. But Odor at 3.7 on DK is a very attractive second base option. 3.9 on FanDuel, like him a little bit less there. If you've got the cash to spend, and on FanDuel, I think this guy is just lock and load. Jose Altuve, he's just been going crazy with the home runs. Not necessarily, not typically thought of as a power guy. I mean, he's your speedster and your leadoff man, but he's been killing it with leadoff home runs. And at 4.1 on FanDuel, he's getting locked into my cash games. At 5K on DK, it's a bit harder to get him in, but I don't love a whole lot of other second base options. So let's talk about some of the other ones. But I think Altuve needs to be at the top of your list when you're going with this. If you're not playing Nate Carnes, Chris Coughlin is a well that I like to keep going back to. He's acquitted himself decently in that time span. A couple of duds, couple of nice games. It's got a lot of potential. 3K on DK, 2.3 on FanDuel. Really cheap on FanDuel, where, of course, you probably don't need him if you're going with John Gray. Neil Walker is another guy that's just hitting the ball really, really hard. I like him. I like the Mets in general. I feel like the win button on a number of slates lately has been the correct Mets stack, especially when they're going to be under-owned, which is not likely today. But all the same, I like Neil Walker. About the similar price, $4,100 on DK, $4K on FanDuel. Makes him a little more attractive on DK, especially since he is just $100 less than Altuve on FanDuel. I would definitely find a way to get that extra $100 if I were you. One last note: this guy's definitely a FanDuel play. Robinson Cano, 30.6 on FanDuel. He's 4.9 on DK. Just massive, massive difference there. That's always something that we're looking to exploit. So I think Cano is worth a look on FanDuel, and if you can't get up to Altuve, I think the $500 savings on Cano is where you'd like to go next, as opposed to just dropping down to Neil Walker at $100. But still, I am touting Altuve as my top option at second base. Hot take, right? I mentioned earlier that on FanDuel, John Gray is still really priced like he's at Coors Field, whereas DK, they have priced him appropriately for not being at Coors Field, instead being at Petco. The same is largely true of the batters. However, it works in our favor in the opposite direction that way. James Shields, in my opinion, has a much better reputation than his actual skills. He's not a terrible pitcher, he's a decent pitcher, but he is vulnerable to home runs, and he has been destroyed by the Rockies hitters in the past. So there's a lot of things going here, especially on DK, and I bring it up primarily because of one, Nolan Arenado, who has an absolutely stellar record against Shields, is, just an amazing hitter in general. I feel like I say that a lot, but you really can't say it enough about Arenado. 4.1 on DK, great value there. Much like Altuve on FanDuel, I think he's just locked into my cash games. 4.8 on DK, a little harder to fit, but again, you can probably get a lot of salary savings on FanDuel in general. Josh Donaldson, I mentioned Toronto before. He's another good option. 4.5 on DK, 4.7 on FanDuel. About equivalent there as far as how good he is. Matt Carpenter is generally a guy that I like to target in cash games because he's always at the top of the order, either first or third usually. Gets on base a lot. Not the biggest power guy, but he does have the power to hit some home runs here and there. He gets Hellickson, who has been kind of back and forth as far as being good and not. I think the Phillies pitching staff in general is underrated. We've seen what Vincent Velasquez can do We've seen what Aaron Nola can do. Hellickson, in my opinion, is the weakest of those three, but definitely still has potential. However, on DK, I can't play Carpenter. 4,200, more than Arenado, just absolutely no way for me. On FanDuel, he's only 3,900, so he's 900 cheaper than Arenado. Brings him into consideration a bit. Another salary-saving option on FanDuel, where again, we don't need to save that much salary. A little bit frustrating. Let's get the pricing going on here, FanDuel. Matt Duffy, Brandon Finnegan again, not a bad pitcher. He's 4K on DK, but only 2.7 on FanDuel. If he's batting near the top of the order, I mean, giving him away there. Again, there's guys I like better, namely Arenado, although, man, that price on FanDuel, it is kind of brutal. And then Kyle Seager, the other Seager that I don't mention a whole lot. Again, more of a FanDuel thing. He's 4,000 on DK. Again, just 100 short of Arenado, but only 3.3 on FanDuel. Gets Kendall Graveman, who is, that's a good way to describe him. He's, not my favorite play. Mike Moustakas versus Gio. I've mentioned, I think at just about every position so far. Royals bats that I like. Again, I'm leaning more towards a tournament there, but at 3,600 on DK and FanDuel, he's certainly worth consideration if you need a guy at that price point. Did I mention Arenado already? I think I mentioned Arenado. Shortstop is easily my least favorite position of the day today. That's not too uncommon, but I'm going to make it easy for you. Troy Tulowitzki is 3.3 on DK, 3.4 on FanDuel. Yeah, it's not as attractive a price on FanDuel, but you know what? Let me make shortstop easy for you. Go click on Troy Tulowitzki. You're done. But if you want some other options, Carlos Correa gets Berrios, who we mentioned, bit of a question mark still, but didn't do great in his first start. Could easily get blown up, especially by a talented hitter like Correa. 4,200 on DK, 4,100 on FanDuel. If you're not going the Tulo route, that's a good one. If you really need to save some money and he gets the start, and I'm not even. I was going to say Ivan De Jesus versus Cueto, 3.5 on DK, 2.3 on FanDuel, but just don't in your cash games. Addison Russell was another guy I was going to mention, 2.8 on DK, 3.0 on FanDuel. Don't. If you're looking down at these guys, you need to get a couple $100 and get Tulowitzki in your lineup. And if you got money to spend, then take a look at Correa. Otherwise, let's put money into some other positions. Forget about this shortstop nonsense. Move on to outfield. The first guy I want to mention here is a guy that I think is a great player, just going to be a great player over the next several years. Nomar Mazara, 2,900 on DK, 3,200 on FanDuel. But I am a little concerned there about Mazara today. As mentioned earlier, the Texas gets R.A. Dickey. Knuckleballers are notoriously unpredictable and kind of hard to get a read on. Nomar Mazara is a rookie. This is definitely his first time going up against R.A. Dickey. I'd have to look at the game log to be sure, but maybe his first time going up against a major league knuckleballer. So I'm a little concerned about him, but he is just an elite prospect, a guy that's done a lot of hitting already at the major league level and is going to continue to do it for years to come. And his price is just really low. But as mentioned, we're probably going to have some salary to spare today, so it might be worth looking over to a guy like Joey Bats. Jose Bautista gets Griffin. I really think DK is overweighting how good a pitcher Griffin is into these salaries. It's always interesting to me to try and figure out what DK and FanDuel are using to set their prices. I'll probably do some videos on that specifically as I get more information. But, just in general, it seems to me that DK reacts more quickly to and or overvalues both park and pitcher in the matchup, which does give us some things to exploit. Like when they think guys like AJ Griffin are going to be better than I think they're going to be. He is 4,100 on DK, 4,300 on FanDuel. I'm sorry, not Griffin, Jose Bautista. Always a good option there. A guy that I think I've mentioned in literally every video that he's been on the slate for, Michael Conforto. He does get faulty. He is 3,800 on DK. I don't even understand what they are doing with Conforto's pricing. That's one that I'd like to figure out for sure. FanDuel is 4,300, which is a much more reasonable price for him, a much more fair price for him, I would say, which means we don't want him. We want guys where the price is unfair, and I think 3,800 on DK is for Michael Conforto, who has just been absolutely on fire. I want him in my lineups. But that does get a little bit tricky because there's just so many guys to like in the outfield. I mentioned earlier that I like the Rockies, that I think DK especially is overvaluing the shift to Petco and how good James Shields is as a pitcher. So two guys that I really like on DK, Charlie Blackmon, and Carlos Gonzalez. Blackmon is recently back from his injury, more of a speed guy than a power guy, but getting you some stolen bases is almost as good as getting you home runs. 3,600 on DK, 4,100 on FanDuel. I don't love him there. On DK, that's a hell of a price. Gonzalez is a hell of a hitter. 3,800 on DK, 4,100 on FanDuel. I'm sorry, 3,700 on FanDuel. Absolutely love him there on FanDuel. On DK, still attractive at 3,800. Like I said, it's going to be a matter of opportunity cost and where you want to spend up, because there are just options all over the place here, including a guy who I like quite a bit, Preston Tucker, if he gets in the lineup, going against Berrios again. 3,100 on DK. It's not really so attractive with some of the other prices there, but he's bare minimum 2K on FanDuel. But hey, you probably don't need to save too much salary on FanDuel. So that is what it is. I like Tucker. If that's a place you need to save some money on FanDuel, absolutely go for it. Another guy I like is Dexter Fowler, who's just been absolutely on fire this year. I've kind of been waiting for him to regress a little bit, because honestly, his batting average on balls in play, BABIP, I don't even know, but his batting average on balls in play is too high. It's unsustainable unless he's suddenly become the greatest hitter ever to play Major League Baseball. But I doubt that has happened, so there is a regression due somewhere there, and maybe it'll come here against Jarrett Cole, who's a good pitcher. It's only 3,900 on DK and 4,100 on FanDuel. For a guy who has both home run and stolen base upside and batting first, and in a really hot offense like the Chicago Cubs, I think that price is too low. That being said, with all the other options out there, I don't know that he's going to end up in any of my cash game lineups, but love him as a player. Definitely got the opportunity today, and a talented leadoff hitter at that price is probably a good thing to have in your cash game lineups. It's just a question of the opportunity cost. And that's all for the outfielders. I say that's all as if there haven't been just 6 minutes worth of picks there. Boy, it's hard to narrow down where you want to go between the Toronto bats, the Colorado bats, the Mets bats, and then just some other guys thrown around in there. There's a lot of options. And I want to talk about a couple who, my daily BVP specials, guys who have just totally slaying the pitchers in question, but always with BVP stuff, there's a bit more risk involved. So just a few of these guys to talk about. Freddie Freeman, I mentioned him in the first base section earlier as kind of a GPP play. He has been excellent against Bartolo Colon, who is not excellent. McCutchen has destroyed Hamill throughout his career, but Hamill is not that bad a pitcher, so I think Kutch is pretty expensive. I didn't actually write that down here since these are more if you have the money and you want to kind of go, I don't know, if you like BVP, these are guys to look at. Hosmer, I mentioned already, versus Gio is another guy that I really like. His price is just out of this world cheap. Salvador Perez, another guy who's just kind of slain there. Alex Gordon, too. I didn't mention him at all. He's been very good against Gio. He's definitely on the BVP special side of things in that he doesn't grade out too high in my model otherwise. And then the Colorado guys that I mentioned specifically, Arenado, Gonzalez, and Blackman, just absolutely wrecked James Shields. So if BVP is your thing, those are guys to target. Regardless, you've just gotten a whole bunch of guys to target in your cash games. As always, come by the Slurve chat. I will be hanging out there on and off throughout the day, answering questions. It's been one of the best parts of our first week, is just getting to hang out with you guys and talk about things in the Slurve chats. Free to sign up, free to come talk to us, get updates throughout the day as lineups come up, and weather. Honestly, I haven't even looked too much into the weather concerns yet for today, so hopefully there's not too many out there, but if there are, come on by the Slurve chat and we'll figure out who are the safe pitching options and things like that. Slurve.com. This is Steve at Slurve, and this has been Cash Game Cornerstones for May 2nd, Monday, and hopefully you have enjoyed this. Come on by the Slurve chat and give me your opinions. Thanks. Bye.